Valheim's Deep North update is finally releasing very soon on September 9th later this year. We finally have a release date, and this is the final planned biome that also marks the full 1.0 release of Valheim, which is super exciting. I know a lot of us have been waiting a long time for this, so today I'm going to be diving into everything we know so far about the Deep North update and Valheim 1.0, and also a lot of footage that you'll see in this video is recorded from a few of my other creator friends, Jade PG and Snazzy Games. I'll leave their full videos linked in the description as well, but they got a chance to go and check out this update and play a few hours of it in its preview branch, which is amazing, and they were able to record and share their experiences. So I do recommend checking those out. But with that said, let's dive in, starting with platforms and crossplay, which is very exciting because Valheim will be launching simultaneously on PC, on Steam, Microsoft Store, Linux, Mac, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and then we'll also get PlayStation 5, which is new, along with Nintendo Switch 2, which will also be new for 1.0. And the best part is it's all crossplay supported between every single platforms when it launches into 1.0, which is very exciting. So that will bring a huge wave of new player base to the game. Super, super cool. As far as the price goes, there was announced that it will be a price increase for 1.0. The creative director Robin did mention that, but said it shouldn't upset anyone too much. But if you do want the game in its current state and current price, then I recommend going ahead and purchasing it before September 9th. And I highly recommend it. It is one of my top favorite survival games. We'll be diving in with a full Forever World playthrough when 1.0 launches, so do subscribe for that. But now let's dive into the actual Deep North biome itself with the full overview. So of course it's located in the far north of the map. Every map is procedurally generated, but it'll all be in that upper chunk opposite of where the last Ashlands biome was. And it is just visually stunning. We see this picturesque blend of snow and ice and dense forests, which is just a very peaceful contrast to the more hardcore Ashlands that we saw before. And then, yeah, the devs call it like this winter wonderland, where it starts off very peaceful. It has these big empty spaces where you can just settle down at the end of the game, build a cozy base and everything. But it does get very difficult as you progress. It will still be a very big challenge in many ways as you go deeper into the biome. We also see all these large abandoned Viking villages scattered across the landscapes. We'll have icebergs covering the coastal waters, the aurora borealis, and the night sky. The vibe here is just super awesome. And then you'll see here as well, we also have this deep snow that covers the ground, which is awesome. And then it kind of parts as you walk through it, similar to what we see in the mountain biome of Enshrouded and such. So that's a really cool mechanic there. And it's also confirmed that this will not slow your movement down. So for any of you who are wondering about that, you'll be able to move through it just fine. It's not going to slow. They decided on that, which is cool. And then you can also see the snow piling on top of structures here, which is a super cool effect. We don't see this in many games, and I don't know if it's going to slowly build up as snowstorms happen over time, like if the roof of structures won't have any snow initially, and then when a snowstorm comes, like I'm really curious to see how this works. So yeah, that'll be super cool. We also get to see it on some of those new steep roof building pieces, which I'm very excited for them to be adding with this update. And then in one of Valheim's teasers, we also see this new shovel tool, which maybe can be used to clear a path through the snow that stays permanent and doesn't kind of fill in behind you as you walk around. I'm not sure how that's going to be used. We didn't get to see many of these creators using it or messing with it yet, but we do have that, so it'll be related to all of that in some way. So as far as environmental hazards and traversal goes now, we obviously see all of this ice and frozen lakes, which is very slippery. There's kind of an ice sliding mechanic over all of these frozen surfaces. And then you can also build your base on the frozen surfaces, which is very cool. We'll have new ice blocks and a bunch of other snow type materials. You can crash your ship into the ice apparently to kind of like break it apart. I mean, all kinds of really cool things here that we'll get to see with this biome. And then also with traversing it, we have a new grappling hook, which is added to the game. and this will be the main traversal tool from Mistlands through the Deep North. You will be able to acquire this grappling hook in the Mistlands biome, which is the perfect time to get it, in my opinion. I think they did a great job putting it there because we see all of the big cliffs and rocks and everything with Mistlands. So this is literally going to be a game changer. It is going to change the way people play Mistlands through the Deep North update. And unlike Enshrouded or other games where you need to have like a little grapple anchor to latch onto, this grappling hook, you can literally just aim it somewhere and it just latches on and pulls you up, slowly lets you down. I mean, pairing this with the feather cape and the Fenris armor and all of that, that's going to be crazy. The movement in this game is going to definitely be very, very different. Now, as far as story elements go for this biome, we get to see a lot of these ghostly Viking spirits that are wandering about the abandoned villages. And they're described as the former inhabitants that are still in spectral form. This is kind of similar to Conan Exiles in a way, and it's very interesting that they're adding this to the game. Maybe it'll make it feel more alive, but also like dead at the same time, which will be very interesting. So they do have some dialogue, but ignore you at first a lot. But apparently you'll be able to interact with them a bit more later. And these ghosts are described by the devs as the jailers of the last boss. So I'm curious to see how they're going to be related to that. And then one of the biggest things that ties the story together is a full cinematic overhaul of pretty much the entire game. We get a new intro cinematic, which I cannot wait to check out. New cinematics after every single boss fight from Eikthyr all the way up through the Deep North boss. So we'll kind of just be tying this entire game together. The whole adventure will make sense and flow together, which is very, very cool. So now let's talk about some of the wildlife and the enemies that you'll encounter in the Deep North biome. We get to see seals here, which are kind of these friendly passive animals like deer in the meadows. They won't hurt you. And then to contrast that, we will also have moose, which can also be tamed and mounted, which is really cool. So Valheim is not adding any horses, but the moose will be your new rideable companion in the Deep North. And they are also very wild and aggressive, probably pretty difficult to tame. But of course, with this new wildlife means a lot more food and ingredients, new recipes, all that good stuff. And you can also summon animals in spirit form to fight alongside you, like the moose and the wolf and things like that. I don't know exactly how many animals or spirit animals you'll get to summon, but either way, that is a really cool mechanic that we see there. And then as far as the enemies go, let's first address the elephant in the room. Quite literally, you'll see the Gamma Trolls. These are kind of the most iconic new enemy, the biggest creature ever added to Valheim. And these are basically the ancient trolls who migrated to the Deep North as they aged to kind of become one with the land. So you will recognize a resemblance from the blue trolls and the Black Forest, but they just have beards, and they are obviously much bigger, absolutely massive, and they're not even a boss, just kind of a regular biome enemy. They're not everywhere though, so don't worry, but just don't build your house near them. That would be a good recommendation, because yeah, they hurl trees at you like a freaking shotgun, and I mean, it looks crazy. So when they're killed, they actually petrify, which is interesting, and then you can harvest their resources by basically blasting them to bits with these ember charges, which are like the new throwable explosives. You can't pickaxe them or anything, but you can build your base on them. They're just like this petrified statue, which is kind of cool. But yeah, you can blow them to bits with the ember charges, which will give you their flesh resources to basically smelt into one of the new metals for the biome. And then we also get the Eleking, which are these little malicious underground inhabitants. And they're in the winding tunnels. So they're these little horned creatures that ambush from underground, and they're kind of one of the key threats of these winding tunnels. And then we also get the Eyeless One, which is another creature inhabiting the winding tunnels. And this is also referenced in the earlier dev blogs alongside the Elekings. And then we also get to see the Barca, which is like a giant lanky creature encountered in the preview, and it's described as what a Greydwarf becomes just before it morphs into a Greydwarf Elder. So basically like this transitional evolution form, and it looks kind of spooky as well. I mean, it's kind of like this haunted pale version of the Elder. So yeah, we will get fewer enemies, but they will be much larger and more powerful. So again, kind of playing with that contrast of you'll find very peaceful areas in the deep north, this cozy, Christmas card style vibe, contrasted by a very challenging enemy somewhere else. But unlike the Ashlands where you have just crowds of them, you'll have them more dispersed, to say the least there. So going along with these winding tunnels and stuff, let's also talk about some of these new dungeon types. As of now, we know of 2 dungeon types. There will be the winding tunnels, which are accessed through holes in the floors of abandoned houses. So do be careful when you go into those structures. They're kind of like these maze-like underground networks of just twisting corridors underground, super easy to get lost in. And yeah, these are home to the Elekings and Eyeless ones, at least from what we've seen with this preview footage. And then the second dungeon type that we got to see a little sneak peek of the entrance was the Gates of Makala. And this is sort of this imposing door found in the basement of these tall towers. And it's gated off. You need a key to enter, and all of the other creators were not actually allowed to enter in their preview of this biome, so we don't know what's inside just yet. Maybe it's likely tied to the final boss encounter, which was a little bit hinted at in the preview, so that'll be interesting to see what's inside of those ones. As far as new weapons and gear go, we get a lot with this biome. These new Nord axes, great swords, bows, a giant circular great shield, and then the Frostfire crossbow, which was definitely a standout among the creators. They loved that thing. And then 3 new armor sets, kind of like some of the previous biomes. We don't see 3 armor sets in every biome just yet, but we will have a light armor, a heavy armor, as well as a mage armor, which is very cool to see. And then we also have the Ember Charges, which are the throwable explosives that we mentioned earlier, but these could also probably aid in combat as well. We also just have a bunch of new materials, frost cores and things, and then this really unique way of crafting the weapons in this biome as opposed to the previous biomes. We see the introduction of molds to the game. So you'll pour your molten metal into these molds to craft your weapons, and this is specific to the Deep North, at least as of now. So that'll be interesting for sort of a new way to craft your weapons and tools, and these will also come along with many new crafting stations and different things to fill your base out. And then we also get a ton of quality of life and crafting improvements along with this update. We have a build menu overhaul, which has a search bar, a favorites list, and like a recently crafted browser there. So no more scrolling forever. It's kind of an interesting new take on the building menu. And yeah, we have the crafting menu reorganized by use, material, recent items, all types of things like that. And we also get over 45 new building pieces, which of course I'm stoked about as a builder myself, including a new drawbridge that can be created earlier in the games. And we get to see a little sneak peek of how that looks, to be able to go up and down over your moat to protect your base from raids, since there are those in this game and everything. But yeah, at least one of the creators, Versag, counted over 45 new building pieces. So I'm very curious to see which ones we get. We'll obviously see new types of wood walls and stone, and then the steep roofs and the beams to go along with those steep roofs and things. So definitely very excited, kind of filling in the gaps of the pieces that I wish we had from earlier biomes. So I'm very excited for that. And then we also get some highly requested quality of life stuff, such as fixing the inventory issue. So the devs didn't give a definitive answer on what exactly this was, but they said that it would be fixed. So hopefully that means something better, maybe higher stack limits, higher weight capacity, larger inventory. We're not getting these dedicated armor slots, it doesn't sound like. So I'm curious to see how they fix it, but they said they would. So, I mean, I'm happy about that, because that was one of my biggest gripes with the game, I think, was the whole inventory management, which is really cool to see that that's going to be fixed there. And then as far as world and progression changes, the devs mentioned that starting a new, fresh playthrough would be the ideal experience for 1.0. I plan to do that. But yeah, there will also be a lot of other changes to the entire world, not just the Deep North. If you're expecting a whole bunch of changes and overhauls and new POIs and things in the existing world, then do not expect that because they're not changing the entire thing very much. But you will find some different variations of existing biomes. Different variations of the Black Forest they mentioned that might just be like cut down stumps or, beech tree plain areas and all kinds of things like that. So you'll see some variation as you go farther out from the center spawn area with these existing biomes as well. But if you've already beaten the Ashlands boss fodder, then you can continue in your existing save and just head up north. And you must defeat the fodder boss to unlock access to something important in the Deep North, but you don't need it to arrive there. So unlike the Ashlands, where you sort of had to craft this new boat because it was really hot to enter into the Ashlands, you could technically just craft yourself a fur cape or grab some frost resistance meat. It's not going to be any colder than the mountain biome. So as long as you've unlocked some things for the mountain biome, you could sail over there on a raft and try your luck if you're feeling brave enough. So you do not need to fight the Ashlands boss to enter into the biome, but you will need the drop from it for other important things later on in the biome. So that will be interesting to see what that's all used for. So Iron Gate considers this 1.0 update to sort of be this good base canvas to continue building on. They did mention that if it goes well, if it's very popular and everything, then they will have a few free updates planned here and there, little tweaks or content additions. They don't know about DLCs yet. They haven't really decided on anything. I don't know what's going to happen with any of that. Take that with an absolute grain of sand because we've already seen that they're very slow with updates with this game. And so as is, I'm just really happy to finally have it be finished. I have no expectations as far as content beyond 1.0 goes, but hey, if they add some little awesome additions here and there, that would obviously be greatly welcome. And then another thing to mention is that we are getting achievements for the game. We're going to have over 50 Steam achievements, which I guess is another reason to start a new playthrough. It'd be fun to have some achievements coming with 1.0. And then also, like I mentioned before, we have all of the cinematics and story progression to just really tie the whole game together, start to finish. So, like I said, I will definitely be planning a brand new Forever World, full live stream series, a bunch of building in this game. I can't wait to dive back in. I've done a lot of playthroughs of Valheim on this channel before we got into Enshrouded and other games, and I've been kind of purposely taking this break to wait for 1.0, and I am so stoked it's going to be here before you know it, guys. Super, super excited for that. Some questions about like the final boss and things like that. We don't know just yet what that's going to be. Like I said, these other creators only got to check out like 30% of the biome. The biome was mentioned as being like 2.5 biomes worth of content. So it's going to be big. There's going to be a lot of stuff in Deep North. And so yeah, we don't know who the final boss is or how that ties in just yet. These ghost Vikings are described as the jailers of this boss. The Gates of Makala, which is that second dungeon, we don't know what's inside that. Likely gives you something to summon this boss. But yeah, the full details are still under wraps, so we don't know sort of that end game, and we probably won't know a lot more about that until closer to the release or on release. But yeah, I am super, super excited for this, and I figured I would do this video just to kind of catch you guys up to speed with everything we've seen in some of these previews, all the major things that I'm really excited for. And as I mentioned as well, I'll leave some links to these other creators' videos if you just want to see some of this uncut gameplay for a bit. They did a great job covering more of it. So yeah, super excited. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do be sure to subscribe for more survival crafting games along with Valheim when it drops into 1.0. I can't wait, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.